Field and Ruben Valdez. They are men who help me stay faithful in church and encourage me, and they came to help serve, and then others helped chop and cook and get ready. So I didn't do it all by myself. So Scott sometimes stretches the truth a little bit. It's always in a good way, though. How do I talk to you about forgiveness? How do I help you to see what forgiveness is about and what it's going to do in your life? As I look at your faces, I can guarantee you this: if you give me 30 minutes to interview you and talk with you, and you answer my question correctly, I will find at least 5 people in your life that you have jettisoned from your life because you weren't willing to forgive. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they didn't do nothing. My mother's an English teacher. I always think things like that just to drive her batty. And she still fusses at me. She's 89 years old, and she still says, "Your prepositions are in the wrong place." I say, yes, but my heart's not. So. But seriously, all of us have people that were important to us, and now they're not. And many of us live under the rule that says, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Everybody gets one strike. But after that second strike, then they're done and they're toast. And I don't have time for that kind of people. Facebook is full of those things. I don't have time for drama. I don't want any part of you to get out of my life. Go away. And then you do the most terrible thing. You unfriend them. And I admit, you feel righteous doing so. Peter was a very interesting and exciting guy. He did a lot of wonderful things. He gets a bum rap a lot of times. People laugh at him because he sank in the water. Right? But remember, 11 of the disciples were still in the boat. Only Peter was out on the water to be able to sink. So give the guy a break. He said, "I'd rather die than deny you." And before the night was out, he was saying, "I don't know that guy, no way, no how, nowhere." He gets a bum rap. But he always asks interesting and pointed questions. In Matthew 18, verse 21 and following, Peter says to Jesus, "Master, if my brother sins against me, how many times am I required to forgive him? 7 times? And I wish there was Facebook back then, because I would love to have seen the selfie of him not only asking that question, but also the look on his face when the master said to him, "I tell you, not just 7 times, but 70 times 7 is the number of times you are to forgive those who sin against you." Now, for those of you who are math majors, let me remind you that is 490 times, right? And if you have the ability to keep track of 490 times so that you quit at the 491st time, we have other things to talk about. So when Jesus says to Peter, 70 times 7 is how many times you should forgive your brother who sins against you, I know that Peter's jaw dropped and his eyes got wide and he had the look of, "You have got to be kidding me." I mean, think about it. We live in a culture where one and done. I mean, let's face it. If machine guns were legal to be mounted on our cars, we would be shooting people off the freeway every day. Just for cutting in front of us. Or not signaling. We would be torching them. Boom! You deserve it. And then we post a face on Facebook and say, look, this guy cut me off. So Jesus says to Peter, 70 times 7. And Peter says, never. So Jesus tells him the story. And this story is fabulous. It's amazing. The master always has a way of picking the right phrases and the right words. And this story is the best. He says there was a man, a great king, and he decided it was accounting day and time to settle up accounts with everybody who owed him money. So he announced it, he put it on Facebook, everybody knew it was time to come pay their debt. And one guy who owed $10 million, 10,000 denarii is about equivalent to $10 million today. So a guy owed $10 million comes and he can't pay. And he falls on his face before the master and he says, just give me some more time. Let's renegotiate the loan. Let's change the terms. Trust me, I will make the payments and I will pay this off. And the master did something amazing. He said, your debt is forgiven. Mark it paid in the books. Here's your receipt. Go in peace. The guy jumped up, happy as he could be, rushed out of the chamber with a load off his back like nobody's business. You are going to be doctors or soon going to know what this debt is like. Some of you who are borrowing money to go to school kind of have a sense of what that debt is like. And imagine how you would feel if somebody said, oh, guess what? Here's a check to pay up all you owe today, student loans included. Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah. That's not happening. But here's the good news. You can work to pay it off and you'll feel so much better. So he walks out, and he walks right into a guy that owes him $10. He owed the master too, was coming to pay the master, but he met a guy that owed him $10, and he says to the guy, where's my $10? And the guy says, word for word, he says, please, help me. Give me a chance to pay this off. Let's renegotiate the loan. Let's change the terms. I promise if you trust me and give me a chance, I will pay it all off and you will have your $10. And this guy says, no way, I want my money now. I'm going to take you right now to the creditors, to the debtor prison, and you're going to stay there until you pay every dime you owe. Within 30 seconds, there were 10,000 posts on Facebook about the idiot who had done this. And guess what? The master had a Facebook account too. And he saw it there. And he said, I can't believe this guy. I just forgave him $10 million and he just threw a guy in prison for $10. Call that guy back. And guess what? There was no lack of people who were dying to go get that guy and drag him back. And they went and got him and dragged him back and put him face to face with a man who had canceled his $10 million debt. And the master said to him, hey, what's the big deal? I forgave you $10 million. And you turned around and threw a guy in jail for $10. Weren't you thinking? What were you thinking? Says, here's what's going to happen. I changed my mind. You now owe the $10 million plus interest. And because I know you can't pay it, the guys standing at the door there are going to take you away. And you will never be out because the interest on the loan is way more than you can pay in a day. So you will be paying this debt forever. And then Jesus stopped telling the story and he looked at Peter and he said, because you have been forgiven much, shame on you if you don't forgive others. So here's the deal. If you know the Master, and if he has forgiven your sins, then only you know how much more than $10 billion you've been forgiven. I can guess, based on personal experience and 40 years in the ministry and all the other things that I've known and done, I could probably guess within 25 cents exactly how much it is. But here's the deal. If you have received that forgiveness, on what basis do you say to somebody, one and done? Oh, don't get me wrong, I understand the problem. I am one of the people in the world who enjoys drama the least. I mean, you just can't, I can tell you that, but you can't conceive of it. But God, in his infinite wisdom, put me together with a woman who hates drama as much as I do. And our life is drama-free. Except, of course, when I do stupid things like forget Valentine's Day or anniversary or Mother's Day. You know, when I do that, then I earned it, so then I have to pay the price of the drama. But that's my fault. But here's the deal. Relationships are messy. And I know that you've got lots on your plate. I didn't sit in this room, but I sat in rooms like this and studied in ways that you studied. I thought God wanted me to be a physician, and I got the A's in physics and biochemistry and all that stuff. And I took the MedCat, passed it and did well. The year that I applied, people who had worse scores and worse tests than I did are now doctors. People that I helped get through biochemistry are charging $100 an hour for their visits because I helped them. And I don't mind it, I'm glad, because I'm much happier being a pastor than I ever would have been as a physician. But I know that you've got tough stuff on your plate. And I know that you want to be no drama. And the thought of sitting down and working out a relationship with someone who did you dirty is painful and difficult. But hear me. Listen to me. There is a finite number of people in the world. You can't keep tossing people away. For your sake, and for theirs, and for a testimony before the world. You see, the world looks at Christians and say, oh, you guys are a bunch of hypocrites. And guess what? We are. I'm into forgiveness. I'm not into perfection. If I sin, yes, I have. Is there a commandment that I haven't broken? No, not one. And I've even improved. Oh. Invented whole new ways of doing it. I think there's a whole footnote section. John Green's improvement upon sin. I understand sin. I understand. I'm not saying it's okay to sin. But I have sinned. And when the time comes, I need you to love me enough to say, you sinned against me, now let's make it right. You did this thing. And I'm here to work this out with you and give you an opportunity to say, forgive me, so that I can hug your neck and say, you're forgiven. And I can give testimony to the fact that I really do appreciate that I am $10 million richer because God has forgiven me that much. And I promise you this. I promise you this. If you will do this, you will be richly, richly blessed. Forgiveness saved my relationship with my wife. When I came to understand exactly what forgiveness was and how to apply it and how to do it, our relationship healed. I could make excuses. I could say it wasn't my fault. I could say, I wasn't trained well. I wasn't taught well. The truth is, I treated her poorly. And she hurt because of that. It's to her credit, because she's a believer also, that she didn't take the shotgun out of the closet and shoot me. Justifiable homicide. No jury in Texas would have convicted her. The judge would have said, John Reed needed killing. There's no question about it. But forgiveness healed our relationship. So that today, she is glad to see me. And lo and behold, wants to spend time with me. Is glad that I'm around. Even though I'm still the same John Reed that was before. Forgiveness has healed and protected the relationship with my children. I have a boy and a girl. They're great kids. They graduated from that school in College Station, and I'm proud of that. I am. They're proud of it. My son went wrong a little bit and ended up with an MBA from that other school in Austin, but, he's kind of ambivalent about that. He's, sometimes good Aggie and sometimes he's not. We love him when he's an Aggie, and the rest of the time we just love him more. But it healed our relationship. It allowed me to say to them, I'm sorry, please forgive me. It allowed them to say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. It made our relationship better. It's healed my relationship with my brother and sister. I was always a great guy. I'm a nice guy. I am. I never tricked them and kicked them or said terrible things about them, but I did things I should have done. I did, no question about it. But forgiveness made it better. And forgiveness healed the breach and allowed us to continue to have a relationship. So here's the challenge. One of these days, every last one of you, whether you believe in Jesus or not, every last one of you will stand before him. And you have to ask yourself, I want to stand before him with a trail of broken relationships behind me and try to say to him, well, I did the best I could. Or do you want to start healing relationships and change them? Don't get me wrong, it's not easy. The hardest thing that it ever was to do is to forgive. I mean, think about it. In order for there to be forgiveness, Christ had to die on a cross. We're not talking about tiddlywinks. We're not talking about little stuff. We're talking about death stuff. In order for God to write the check that said John Green is forgiven his $10 million, Jesus had to die on the cross. So when you look at your brother or sister and you say to them, I forgive you, that is a big check. Because look at what Jesus is doing when he forgives you. He is saying to you, I am not going to hold you accountable anymore for the things that you have done against me. He's eaten it. He's taking it upon himself. He is saying, I am going to forego revenge because relationship is what I'm about, not about revenge. And don't fool yourself into thinking, well, I just don't talk to him anymore. I'm not about revenge. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. That is the cruelest of revenge. For you deny them your relationship, and you deny them forgiveness. Of course, there is the possibility that you have taken offense at something that they didn't do. Uh-oh. That never happened to this group, did it? Yeah, it did. And some of that broken relationship is because you took offense when you shouldn't have. Maybe you really are ugly and your mama dresses you fine. I mean, think about it. You could very well be that one who is ugly and their mama does dress them funny. And when they said that to you, it was the truth, and you needed to hear it. I'm glad you can laugh. Because what I'm asking you to do is really the hardest thing you can do. You see, when you forgive somebody, you give them 3 promises. You promise not to remind them of their sin to them. So the next time you see them, you don't say, remember you did it. You promise not to remind others of their sin. You know how we do a prayer meeting, right? Please pray for Susie with me because Susie treated me like a dog and I'm trying my best to forgive her, so please pray for her. You laugh. I was there for that. And the third promise is, I promise not to bring it up even to myself. Now I'm here to tell you, beloved, listen to me carefully. If your wife comes home and says to you, I've been sleeping with another man, you will never, ever forget that conversation. On your dying bed, that memory will still be resident in your mind, and if you allow it, it will jump to the front. But if your wife comes to you with tears in her eyes and a broken heart, asking for your forgiveness, on what basis are you going to say no? Oh, I know the Bible says you can. But on every other page of the Bible, it says you shouldn't. For the hardness of your heart, Jesus said, Moses gave that because y'all were too stubborn. But don't do it. But putting that aside, and putting that behind you, and looking at her again as your beloved wife, that's what forgiveness is about. And for those of you who are not yet married, you can fill in your own sin. I have either experienced or committed all of them, so I know they're all there. So my question to you is 70 times times 70, 70 times 7 too much for you? Can you really forgive? And I guess here's the place where it really rubs. Here's the place where it really turns. If you are keenly aware of the gravity of your own sin and the vastness of what He has forgiven you, then forgiving others is not a big thing. But if you think He only forgave you for a couple of little things that you did, you know, those little white lies, you know, your mother-in-law asked you, does this dress make me look fat? And you said, oh no, it does not. It makes you look lovely. Okay, first of all, that's a terrible lie. But it's still just as bad as the other lie you're going to tell. There are no little sins. And the list of our own sins are huge. If you cannot forgive them, how can you really appreciate the forgiveness that God has done for you? I know you got lots on your plate. I hear you talking about the exams and all the studies and everything else you got to do. I understand that. But in comparison to the world, what I'm suggesting to you is way more important than your anatomy final. Way more important than whether you can drill to within an eighth of an inch of where you need to be. Way more important than anything you might imagine. Because its reach is much broader. So take some time. Go back to the most recent disappeared one. And make peace. And then use that to make peace with the next one. I promise you. It will be better than getting whatever the biggest thing is on the bed cat or making an A in every class you take. It will be way better than any of that. I promise. Let's pray. Father, help us to forgive. And help us to be forgiven. And help us to do so based on the fact that you have forgiven us so very much. For it's in Christ's precious name we pray. Amen.